Hi there, and welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where father and son and, some other people talk about things in fantasy books, games, shows, all of the above. I'm the son of that equation, Zach.
And I'm the father, Jim. Great to have you with us here for one of our midweek specials, brought to you live here on YouTube if you're one of our patrons, and brought to you later, not live, but still on YouTube. As well as for those of you listening in the audio format later, we're bringing it for you as well. We've got a great episode for you today, but of course, I want to know, Zach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. Um, it's been a long week at work with some weird scheduling, moving things around. But we're making it work. And so I'm just really excited to have New Year's Eve off at least and get to say goodbye to 2021 and hello to 2022 soon here. How are you doing, Dad?
I'm doing great. I mostly have this week off. I just have to take care of a few work things as they pop up, but I don't have any meetings or regular scheduled activities this week. So it's really laid back. I've had a lot of time to pour into podcast content and prepping for things like this. That's been fun. Yeah, I got nothing to complain about other than there is snow outside, which is wrong here in suburban Portland.
Yeah,
That's not cool. Not at
I
all.
don't have any snow, by the way, here in Texas.
In
No, we don't
Texas, I should hope not.
we don't have snow. Uh,
Now, Zach, there is someone else on the screen with us, and I want to know how he's doing. So why don't you introduce him and let's find out how this other guy's doing today.
So this is a really good friend of mine. His name is Brendan, and he's going to introduce himself a little bit, how he knows me slash my dad, and how he's doing. I guess. How you doing, Brendan?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Just sitting here getting angrier and angrier as you guys are talking about the amount of snow that you have outside. Um,
You've had quite a
I-
winter up there, I hear, this year.
little bit, and it's all turned kind of sloppy recently because we've been really warm. But I do know Zach from high school in Alaska. I think he's probably mentioned that on the podcast. One
I
would
don't
hope
know if I have
You have
that you're
that
not
we've been
from
up in
Alaska, or that
Yeah.
you've been in Alaska. Okay,
something along
but
those lines.
anyways, I know Zach from high school. We've been friends for what? I graduated in 2014, so 7 years now.
Something like that.
I met Zach's father, Jim, who I'm not allowed to call sir. We learned that early on as we were preparing for this. So Jim, I met him when Zach and I were in debate and things of that nature. And yeah, I'm obviously a little bit of a Witcher fan. I'm happy that they invited me on to talk about it because I will usually talk to anyone I can about it. Podcast or
Just
otherwise.
the kind of person we need for this. Then you are our Witcher expert. We're rolling with today, and it sounds
So
like
now
you'd be a
that
perfect
all the
person to talk.
pressure is on you.
All right, don't do that to me right now.
Zachary David, my goodness.
I'm not through my first drink yet, and so way to drink before we start putting that much.
Fair
It's
enough.
called pre-gaming. I learned that, I believe, from my son. It's all good. And we do always like to know what everybody's drinking. So since you mentioned it, what are you drinking, Brendan?
I am drinking. There's my camera. Haha, a Godfather. So half whiskey, half Di Serono, all on the rocks. Adequately
Nice.
alcoholic.
All right. What about you, Dad?
I've just got a nice Heavenly Hills Cabernet Sauvignon from the Columbia River Valley. It's nice, simple. I mean, I usually do something a little more complicated, but I just felt like wine today. So
Is it
that's me.
earthy?
Cheers.
Does it have a nice earthy?
It actually does. Yes, it
Nice.
does.
Love it.
So I actually went out and did a little bit of fun for today's episode. It's not a Watt tale because we're not talking Watt today. So I figured I would kindly call it an elixir. I feel like that would work.
Nice.
And this is the Tawny Owl. I don't know if Brendan, you recall enough from games and stuff. I Googled and that's why I chose that name. But
So it's a callback to the Witcher video games?
It is, yeah, and I'm trying to
Yeah.
remember what the potion does, and
I
it's
believe
not
it's a
sticking.
stamina potion.
That seems right. Yeah, Thunderbolt and Tawny Owl. Tawny Owl might be like an instant stamina thing. I could be out of my depth a little bit on that one. It's not really a potion people use.
But it's 2 ounces of gin, an ounce of creme de violet, an ounce of Bakarovka, and an ounce of lemon juice. Or in this case, I think I used lime because I couldn't find lemon at the store.
That third thing you said, I kind of wanted to say Gesundheit. What the
Yeah,
heck was that?
Bakarovka. I was stuck on that.
Bakarovka, it is a herbal liqueur. I believe they make it technically in Czechia. It's quite good, but for me, I had to include it because the first time I tried it, I was in Poland, which is very topical for the Witcher series.
Now, did you mean Chechnya?
No, I meant
So a
Czechia,
different place?
as in the place
What's
that
Czechia?
used to be Czechoslovakia. Now it's Czechia and Slovakia,
When did it change
Yeah.
from being the Czech Republic?
like 2008 or something like that.
Oh, man, I feel old.
What is
Okay.
that? Check yourself before you wreck yourself?
Seriously, I should.
Okay, I don't think we
Okay.
have any listeners from there yet, so we're safe.
Not yet. But we do have a new listener internationally that I can add in now. For the first time, our podcast is being downloaded in Uruguay. Geography quiz.
Sweet.
Where is Uruguay? Your mother had no idea. Anyone?
Antarctica.
No.
No, but it's
Um,
closer than we are to
Is
Antarctica.
Uruguay in South America?
Ding, ding, ding. And it is the only landlocked nation of South America. It's just southwest of Brazil. There you go. Uruguay. Welcome, Uruguay. We're glad to have you listening. A few other notes before we get to our fun content today. I want to again remind people of our upcoming special episode on January 8th. This will drop before that, so you still have a chance to catch us on a live YouTube live stream as we celebrate all things The Dragon Reborn. It's a great special wrap-up episode we're doing. Our content will be done, and we're just bringing in 3 other Wheel of Time content creators, experts, to come and talk about The Dragon Reborn and the journey so far, and we'll play some games, we'll do some trivia, we'll talk just what do we geek out about on Wheel of Time, and we won't spoil the future, because that's not what we do.
So I didn't know games or trivia were included, and now I'm even more excited.
Told you, I've had time to do some prep. So January 8th, 10 a.m. Pacific time, live here on YouTube, open to everyone. You do not have to be a patron for this one, just like we've done at the end of each of our previous Wheel of Time books. This one is open to everyone. Come make a crowd. Let's have a party. So that's going to be happening. I also want to, one last note for today, remind you again of our upcoming To Read or Not to Read series.
Mhm.
As we're planning out what we're going to do in 2022, we're coming up with a new midweek special series where we'll be reviewing at a very light, spoiler light level, different fantasy and sci-fi series that Zach and I are familiar with. We'll be talking about why you might want to read it, why you might not want to read it, give you some opinions and thoughts without ruining. Zach is frowning.
You said 2020. No, you said 2022. And I'm like,
I said 2022,
it's
didn't I say that?
correct. No, you said 2022. And that is correct.
Well, it's still the same thing,
But-
yes.
I don't know if I've heard someone refer to 2020, 2021, or 2022 as
Dude,
2000,
dude.
whatever. It's correct.
Check
It just
ya.
felt
Check
really
yourself.
weird.
Look, I'm sad that you guys are gatekeeping audiobook listeners by saying to read or not to read.
No.
We include listening as
fully
reading.
understand that
Audiobooks are
audio
reading.
counts as reading these days. So you're all good. No gatekeeping here.
Good.
In fact, I'm reading 2 different books right now at the same time. One is in real text and one is on audiobook. And it's
Oh,
all
I thought
good.
you were going
now.
to say one in one ear and one in the other.
Oh,
is really
that would be
confusing.
confusing. Or very talented.
It'd be an
But I'm
impressive
not quite that
feat.
talented. Anyway, so January 8th, 10 a.m. And that was the other one. What I'm doing this time, upcoming To Read or Not to Read series. We are giving our patrons a chance to influence which ones we will cover. And basically, if you are a patron of the Fantasy for the Ages podcast, you get a vote. And however high a tier of patron you are on our Patreon, the more votes you get. And whichever series gets the most votes, Zach and I have to do for one
No
of these
matter
episodes.
what.
If we haven't read it, we got to read it first. So if there's something out there you wanted us to read, we haven't yet, this is your chance to force it down our throats. As long as it's science fiction or fantasy, we will have to read it because we love our patrons. Find us on patreon.com, Fantasy for the Ages. If you want in on this, our patrons who are already supporting us have already been voting, but this is going on till till February, beginning of February. We're letting people get in on the vote. So there's lots of time still. So get in on it. And we'd love to have you as part of our Patreon supporters too. So
See,
there you go.
Brendan's hearing this for the first time because I don't talk about, I talk about the podcast. I actually do, but I don't talk about this specifically with my friends because I absolutely know all of them are the kind of people who would hop in for a month to put 50 votes on something terrible.
Hey, you and I both know what I would get you to read. I would get you into the Wheel of Time because you've been or not the Wheel of Time. Yes, I'm sorry. You guys have never read the Wheel of Time, and I'm making you do
please, pay us to do Wheel of Time.
No, I know
do
what
that,
you would.
yes.
Way of Kings.
You'll be happy to find out.
Starlight Archive.
I just bought The Way of Kings. I now have it on my shelf. It is soon in the list. Is it next?
It's 18 months once you've read it all. So.
Yeah. So we do actually, I know, Brendan, Zach hasn't told you, it is shocking. We actually have people who do financially support our podcast. They actually think what we're doing out here is sufficiently fun that they give us money each month to keep going. Partly just saying, that a boy, keep it up. Yay. And then they get to join in with us on live recordings and such when they fit it into their schedule. We've got some people pretty faithful, especially on our Wheel of Time episodes, that are with us. Yeah, and we actually have over 40,000 downloads of this podcast over the last year. It's mind-blowing.
That's a lot of hits.
Every day have anywhere from 150 to 300 new downloads. So
and some it's kind of fun. From Uruguay, as we've learned today.
Apparently.
Exactly. Even
which is in
Uruguay.
South America.
And there we go. Not Antarctica. We're still working on Antarctica.
All right. Any more announcements, Dad?
That's it for announcements. Let's get to the fun stuff today, Zach. What are we doing?
So we're here to talk The Witcher. Now I say The Witcher, not The Witcher series or The Witcher TV show. Season 2 just came out. I just finished it last night, personally. But just The Witcher, because it's had a number of adaptations and it's great source material. And I want us to kind of sit down and have some chats about things we think, things we like, ways that the adaptations play with each other or with the source material, and all of the above. So to start out, I just kind of want to set a baseline and say, one, there's going to be spoilers. Beware.
Big time.
If you are unfamiliar with The Witcher at all, but don't care about spoilers, keep listening. But if you care, like a normal, rational human being that is not me, probably turn away. Now that cautionary word is out there, just kind of setting the groundwork, starting with you, Dad. What is your experience with The Witcher? How familiar are you?
I have watched both seasons of the TV show front to back. As soon as I finished the second season, I realized I really need to go watch the first season again because I think I'm going to enjoy it much better now that I can go through season 1 and 2 back to back. So I'm looking forward to that. I have heard of the Witcher video games. I've never seen them played. But I've heard particularly Witcher 3 kicks butt. That's what you have told me, Zach. And I've heard that from others who also I trust. So not to imply I don't trust you.
I see. I would have let you have it. I wouldn't trust you on that either.
You kick butt on video games in general compared to me. So I don't know what that means if you think something kicks butt.
I mean, I personally would say best game period ever. Period.
Wow.
Which I believe is why I've told you it's a wonderful game.
See, there you go. And we'll get into that. The books, I've seen they exist and they're in my TBR. And I did a YouTube video that's going to drop today or tomorrow, just a solo one on what I read in 2021 and what I look to read in 2022. And The Witcher, I officially put on my 2022 list. So I do plan to read the books. I'm not worried about spoiling because I've seen the TV series and I'm just going to have fun going through the books too. So we can talk
Good.
full spoiler. But there you go. I haven't read the books. I haven't played the games. I love the TV show.
All right, Brendan, your turn.
Yeah, so I've played the games pretty religiously, Witcher 2 and Witcher 3 mainly. Witcher 1 was a 2007 release on PC only, so a little dated by the time I had my gaming
Just a wee
set
bit.
up. I do have it downloaded though, so I do plan on playing it, but I am familiar with the plot line of it and how it feeds into the next two games. In regards to reading the books, I've gone through the first three of the books. So your Sword of Destiny, which has been completely ignored by the TV show for the most part. Your Blood of Elves, and then The Last Wish. So I've got that. So I've gotten pretty much through the books as far as the TV show has gotten as well, which I've watched all of that too. So.
Now, I understand one of the books is like really a series of short stories about Geralt. Is that
Yes
one of the
and
ones?
no.
Geralt, sorry. Is that one of the
Please,
ones you just
please.
named?
Yes and no.
The first two, though, right?
Those
Are a lot
first
of
two
short-
both are, because
So
if I remember
They
correctly,
both are.
originally they were published as part of like a weekly editorial writing competition thing, and I think they won. And later he went back and went, "Hey, I could write more," and he actually started writing Witcher books. But then it was like, oh, we can put these other stories into a book as well as then place them in the timeline, and which is a mess. The interesting thing the first season of the show did, jumping around between different plot lines and stories and timelines, is completely accurate to those first two books.
Yeah, it was a
Sword of
mess.
Destiny and The Last Wish.
Yeah.
which
Even
What's
the way the
going
books
on?
were released, like you like if you look at the way they're released, they're the ones chronologically are years apart. Like Anders Sapkowski was an absolute madman in the way he was releasing these things. It was awful.
I just start with saying, okay, you want to read the series. Don't read book 1 first. Because it's Blood of Elves is technically book 1. But it's not the book you're supposed to read first. It's like third.
Can I assume you can find that online? You find reading guides for the recommendation order. I mean, you find it on
Absolutely.
everything else. Okay.
There's
And
a
is
bunch
any of
books.
that
There are things
by
you
the
need to read
author?
before.
You know, can you find a reading order by Sapkowski saying, read my books this way?
I don't think so. Not that I've
'Cause a
looked
lo-
for him specifically.
Yeah,
I
a
just
lot of
assume he's
authors
like a-
go with publication order. I did it this way,
Mhm.
read it this way. I'm curious. Maybe I'll Google it while we're talking.
I think most of the orders, as best they can, that are out there, for the most part, kind of follow chronological, with a couple side stories that can be read whenever.
And I would agree with that, certainly.
Now,
Okay.
I do need to throw out there, my personal experience is limited. I am not the expert on Witcher things. That's why I brought Brendan. He's more knowledgeable than I am. Because I've only actually read.
Did you write that down,
so far-
Brendan? Wait, it's recorded. You'll have it forever.
It's fine.
Yeah,
It's
You're
permanent.
more knowledgeable
I am.
than Zach.
Check.
Yeah,
In The Witcher. You did qualify it, but
specifically in The Witcher.
But you can edit that sucker and
I
use it
knew
for
where
whatever you
Uruguay
need.
was.
look, I would have hazarded a guess in South America, but if you go Antarctica, everyone's gonna know. It's like, he's making a funny. If I say
It's
Africa,
true.
I seem like an asshole.
All right. So
Oh,
I
that's
read
good.
The Last Wish and Sword of Destiny. Blood of Elves is sitting on my shelf and got knocked back in my TBR as I read other things, either for fun or for the podcast. And I haven't convinced myself to buy the rest yet because I haven't read it yet. That's the only reasoning. Otherwise, my show experience is about the same as my dad. And as far as games go, I've seen some played. I know things about them. I never actually got the chance to play any. And that's partially because about a year ago, I was really interested and wanted to play them, and I only had a Mac. because someone did this great thing where they released them for free, just download them and play, and I couldn't. It
Only
was
had a Mac.
sad.
Heard it here. Apple sucks.
I fixed that. I now have a PC for exactly the reason of sometimes play games. But now that our kind of Witcher-ness and Witcher knowledge is out there, we can generally say there probably won't be very many spoilers in this episode past Blood of Elves because none of us have gotten further. However,
True.
with what we know now, I'm going to give each of you about a minute to tell me what the hell is The Witcher about? And if you want, I'll give you 2 minutes. You can work together.
Yeah, so I think it's a lot of it comes from people being put into positions where they have really big shoes to fill, and we're starting to see that really kind of take heed in all of the mediums, especially. But the show, which of course I think is going to be what people are most recently known to. Horrible phrasing. But one, you have Geralt, who's put in this position of having to protect someone who is literally can be responsible for either the destruction or the saving of the world at large. And I think like that's he has those shoes to fill. Ciri is being told she has to either she's fulfilling a prophecy in one way or another. And so I think people who weren't ready for it, fulfilling a destiny that was pretty much already prescribed before they ever got into it. Oh, are you counting me down?
He is. That's
Because
great.
the best part is my dad has to pick up from where you left off.
Nope, I'm taking it a different direction. Because here's the thing. I had no bloomin' clue what The Witcher was about after watching season 1. I just, by the end, got, oh, the timeline was all different and we had different stories, and oh, this was kind of cool, and wow, okay, there was good effects, and I like Geralt, and I like that witch lady, and Ciri I think is special, and that's all I got. And then I watched season 2, and now it all makes a heck of a lot more sense because season 2 shared, so I understand. This was a world of elves, and then something happened, and people came to the continent now, but there were monsters too, and they found a way to combat the monsters with magic, but the elves have been disenfranchised, and then they couldn't have babies anymore, and now they want to have babies again, and they really are afraid, the humans, that the elves are going to take over, and they did something, so Ciri is supposed to be the one who actually can save the elves, I guess, which is maybe dangerous for the humans, and we shall see.
That was pretty close to a minute.
To be fair, the elves are pretty dangerous to the humans as well. If you saw that scene with the babies, that was pretty harsh, and like I give them credit for doing that, but that was a very hard scene to watch, I would say.
She was a little provoked, but
I would agree.
One might say that was overkill. Can I go there? Overkill.
It was hard to judge too harshly, but man, that went dark.
Okay,
I loved the reveal at the very end, by the way. Loved that.
See, so that I was literally about to ask that because I think it's interesting. The games are way past anything the show has even dove into at all.
Yes, however, I really love that The Witcher 3, the game, is it subtitled or is it DLC? That's The Wild Hunt.
That's the name of the game.
The Witcher 3, Wild Hunt,
The
right?
Wild Hunt, yes.
And I think it's really fun that they're setting up The Witcher Season 3, The Wild Hunt.
That's pretty good.
See, the funny thing is, I don't know if they're actually setting that up, though, because, like, even still, the way they visited them, it was on a completely different plane of existence.
It might just be hinted for later.
Way later, yeah, because even, like, in the game, they talk about a time where Yennefer and Geralt spent time riding with the Wild Hunt, whether that was to protect Ciri or what have you. There's a lot of story to tell, whether it be from the game, which was, like I said, well after the story, so almost making it a labor of love in a lot of ways. Like they had to create a new story around all these characters.
And then fleetingly, just from the last episode, it seemed like at the end they were pitching that there's going to be a Witcher spinoff already.
There
Did you guys
is.
catch
It's in
that?
It did
2022.
look like that. It looked
Yeah.
to me. It looked like maybe an origin story of like the elves.
Yeah,
chunk.
something like that. Right, right. It's not a continuation of what we're watching right now. It's something totally different timeline-wise. Yeah.
Yeah, it
So,
seems like it's
okay,
happening
cool.
earlier, and it's releasing in 2022. I don't remember the name of it, but I did actually see that on my looking things up today.
I think it's interesting and exciting. Speaking of still kind of with show, and I think a lot of our conversation will be heavily show based, partially because it's so topical, but then with other things in there. Thoughts on some portrayals here? The one that we need to go to first is Henry Cavill. Do you
he
like him?
rocks
Do you
it.
hate him?
Oh
And
my
why?
goodness. All right, he's got this demeanor that he has so held to with absolute consistency. The grunts, the tone of voice, the mannerisms, that whether those are perfectly true to the books or the video games, I don't know. But I understand he's a fan of the video games. I'm going to assume he's done this all very intentional to align with his image of the Witcher, of Geralt of Rivia, and he's so consistent. That's the part that I love. He doesn't break character.
I would agree with that, but I also think it's interesting because I would have loved to have seen someone else try it out as well. The Witcher itself is supposed to be this emotionless kind of grunty person who doesn't really think much of anything. So, like, the acting by not acting in a lot of ways, like, you're not emotive at all. I wonder if he was really good at it, or if that was a character that was set up for pretty much anyone who took on the reins. Now, to be fair, I want to compliment. I thoroughly enjoyed Henry Cavill in the role. I'm not sure if I buy that Henry Cavill is supposed to be well over 100 years old in it, which Geralt is, of course.
Well, his hair is gray.
Yeah, but that was like
Sorry,
that,
of course,
at a young age.
But the genetic mutations extending him well above 100, it's like, okay, I mean, Henry Cavill, this is a gorgeous man that we're looking at here. Like, do I buy this?
The only way we
speaking of
really
gorgeous
see
man-
and buy that is seeing the different parts of timeline and how old Ciri ages, and he doesn't
And
change.
he didn't. Now, Zach,
And
you still
it's
need
subtle.
to answer this question, but before you do, I just want to chime in. Did Henry Cavill really need a Witcher outfit that had abs built into it? I mean, come on, that's overkill.
Otherwise,
right there,
it wouldn't fit right. It needed to be sculpted to his physique, so it.
Or maybe it was
actually
just
fit.
smooth, and that's literally his abs popping it out.
Not to be that guy, but doesn't putting like divots like that in an armor actually weaken it in those points anyways?
Absolutely.
So, like, why? Yeah, you're right.
Unless
Why?
if it's made of like multiple pieces and that's actually putting it together, it adds flexibility, but it is weakening it.
I also kind of wonder, so is he the shining star, the favored boy? Because everyone else has crap compared to him. He's the one with all the fancy stuff. All the other Witchers
If you paid attention, he made it.
And the rest are bums that don't make anything? Maybe that's it. Maybe he's the rock star. He overachieves on everything.
At least
I don't
in
know.
Kaer Morhen that the rest were not as into being fully trained all the time and fully in the stuff, and that's what we were seeing.
They don't grunt as much either. They tend to have more of a personality.
Are we suggesting that a Witcher's power is coming from the amount of grunts that he's able to put in on any given scene?
It could be. It could be, in karate, taekwondo, it's different kinds of noises. Maybe with Witchers, it's the grunt.
If I remember correctly, and Brendan, you can correct me when I'm wrong, Geralt is like an uber Witcher, right?
Yeah, Geralt, one, was able to take on more mutations than some of the other Witchers. And among his kind, he is considered, he's famous. There's a reason, like, when you go around and you drop the White Wolf. Yeah, I almost said Butcher of Blaviken, but that one's less...
That would mean something too.
Prominent. Yeah, people know the Butcher of Blaviken, but it's kind of when they're talking down on Geralt and trying to come up with a reason not to trust him. But certainly he was able to go under more mutations during the Trial of Grasses, which is the point when Witcher boys are becoming true Witchers.
And while it's not been, I don't know if it's been discussed in the show at all. Maybe it has, and I'm just misremembering. But also, like, his mom somehow was a sorceress. which
That was
shouldn't
sort of
be a thing,
destiny.
but is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that adds into this whole thing of he has so many different things going on that make him more than just human.
Now it's
Different.
So
escaping
Zach-
me a little bit. I think his mom maybe had him before she became a sorceress, or
I think
underwent
it felt like she was pregnant with him before and then went through the process or something. I don't remember entirely. I don't know
That
if it's ever
usually
actually
does things to
explained.
babies in Fantasyland.
Yeah.
So there you go. So Zach, we want to know about you. How do you feel about Henry Cavill's performance?
I mean, one, I love it. I hate Henry Cavill as Superman. It just doesn't work for me. But I love him as Geralt. I do clearly see, though, he's a fan of the games. He may have read and be a fan of the books. But the adaptation is an adaptation of game Geralt for the most part. And where I go for the biggest telling factor on that is the voice. In the books, it is described as a metallic, grating, almost annoying voice. And so it feels like it's going to be a lot more like nasally high pitched almost. And one amazing voice actor who I don't remember the name of, but Brendan might, did a wonderful job in the games, giving something completely different. And that's that gravelly tone that we associate now with Henry Cavill's Witcher that is just so... It's powerful in a, this man is a badass way. He opens his mouth and you know. But that's not what we get in the books.
Doug Cockle, by the way, on the voice actor. I actually had to
Thank
look that
you.
one up. I couldn't remember. To be fair, though, like, I'm not 100% sure how me, a fleshy person, or Geralt, also a fleshy
Makes a
person,
metallic
is supposed to
voice.
get metallic out of my voice.
And I'm not sure that would be high pitched. Metallic doesn't sound high pitched to me.
Makes my brain think like tinny.
Yeah, is my voice supposed to sound like a cymbal?
You know, is our problem with Henry Cavill playing Superman is he's really the Witcher playing Superman, and that's why it doesn't work?
The Superman came out, though, before, right?
It did.
So, like,
True.
he had a
I didn't,
shot at
I didn't
it.
much like
He
it.
was miscast. He really needed to be the Witcher all along. I don't have the problem with him as Superman that Zach has clearly stated. I'm like, nah, he's fine. I mean,
I
of
think-
course, if you watch the Snyder cut of Justice League, they're all terrible, so it doesn't matter anymore. But I'm okay with him as Superman.
I think to me it has a bigger thing to do with just not caring much for the movies, writing, and all of the above that he was Superman in. And so therefore that Superman I just don't care much for.
Now, I never watched the Superman movies. Did he play those roles emotionlessly as well? Like,
Yes.
does Superman smile
No.
in those at all? No? Oh, see,
really.
yeah,
No.
I think Jim's right then. Yeah, it must have been. He was meant
He
for
was
the Witcher all
practicing for
along.
Geralt.
And intuitively, we all knew that.
Now,
Between
since you
that
haven't watched
and
those Superman movies
reloading
yet,
his biceps in Mission Impossible, he was just getting ready.
yeah. So regarding those Superman movies, since you're missing that from your repertoire, you're not missing that from your repertoire. Don't bother. Don't go watch.
Cool.
Just watch
Works
The
for me.
Witcher again.
Yeah, there you go. I'm gonna just continue to avoid all DC movies that get released ever and continue enjoying Marvel.
Nice. I knew I liked this guy. All right. I
next
just
topic
finished
is
What
up
If,
discussion.
by the way, yesterday.
Oh, good for you.
Since he said Marvel,
That
I got
sounded
What If done, so we can start
so-
Hawkeye now.
Pedantic on you, and I feel so bad because I didn't mean it to.
Good for you.
Yeah,
Some
I'm
of us are
sorry.
busy reading and watching good TV.
Oh,
Anyway,
ouch.
I want to move to a different character. And this time we're not talking
Please.
about portrayals. But I know that in every adaptation, it is vastly different. I want to talk about Triss Marigold.
Okay.
Because who she is in the books, who she
I
is
didn't even
in the
remember
show,
her in the first season. Was she in
and
it?
who she was. And I think they, in the second season, made her hair significantly redder because of fans of the games that were upset.
I like her in the second
Because-
season.
who she is in
Significant
the
role,
games,
I get it.
completely different.
I mean, I know
Yeah.
she must have been there at the end of the first season, because didn't she get burned?
Not
And
just
that's
the
when
end
it happened?
though. So
Or did she get
in
burned
the
earlier than that? It wasn't
Do you
after
remember
the last
the
battle?
Striga, the
Correct.
princess that was actually a monster in a castle, and he had to spend the night in the castle thing? So she
Mhm.
was there at that time, and when Geralt ended up injured, she's the one, at least in the show, that fixed him as well.
Okay. Again, most of the first season didn't stick because the
Well, she
timeline
didn't
being
have
all
red
messed
hair
up and stuff,
then.
I just didn't follow it very well.
Mhm.
That's the thing. You can't remember her. She didn't have red hair. It was this brown sorceress. It's like, okay, so it's just another sorceress in the show, and they've put so many of them in different places. It's like, how am I supposed to remember this? Like, they didn't
Game
really call
fans
attention to it.
went off on it. Who is Triss in the games, Brendan?
Triss is, in a lot of ways, the competitor to Yennefer for Geralt's love and attention. And I feel like the show
Wow.
just very, very lightly touched on that when they were sitting at Kaer Morhen together, and she like invited him to go to bed. No, in the games, Geralt loses his memory, and Triss straight tries to steal him from Yennefer. While they're still bound by the wish Geralt made for Yennefer and him to be together, Triss is like, that doesn't matter. He lost his memory. I'm going to do my best to take the Witcher for my own. And so, like, a lot of Witcher 2 is that's what that's focused on, is Geralt not having his memory. And like, it's a legitimate discussion by the end of the third game where it's like, hey, who Geralt's supposed to be with? The books say Yennefer. I'd say the show probably says Yennefer as well. They haven't really alluded to that much. Geralt pretty much shut her down, and they didn't give much more credence to it.
Is it possible in the games to play it so that you end with Triss?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And
Yeah.
like, they have a whole end story scene where it's like, hey, Geralt ended up with Triss, and he was pretty damn happy about it because Yennefer can be a bit of a pain. But
she can.
Yeah, it's definitely possible, and it's funny. And I'm going to go on a complete tangent here.
Do it.
One of my favorite things in the games is, just to enlighten you guys, is there's points in the game where you can both be with Yennefer and Triss, and neither of them are particularly content about it. And as you're getting into the climax of the game, they end up tying you to a bed, leaving you with insinuating a threesome.
And you're getting to the climax of the game. Is this what you're saying, really?
The climax of the game.
Yes.
Climax of a couple points, Jim. Thank you.
When I compare the two of them, just what I know from the Netflix series, I've got Yennefer and Triss. Yennefer is way more powerful, seemingly, although she has issues. Triss seems to have less issues and is very competent, but I don't put her at Yennefer power. Is that accurate?
Like the show, though? Are they good people? Yennefer, Triss.
Hey, Yennefer, look, Triss started off.
Show.
She's kind of just been running neutral the entire time. She did tell Tissaia at the end about it, and that kind of screwed a lot of stuff up. But Yennefer actually redeemed herself. So she starts in like a -3. She's working with the Deathless Mother or whatever. And then she goes, it's like, I'm going to save Ciri. And look, as I slit my wrist trying to provoke her out. Does she not surpass Triss in an action?
I don't know if I feel like that's like redeeming yourself in that way. Great. But like, does that put you balanced back to good, or does that just like put you to a net balance because what you did was so messed up and this is all your fault?
Because you do so many horrible things. You're betraying people, you're seeking your own purposes, and then, oh, I'll do wonderful sacrifice, and now I'm wonderful
Whatever
again.
the cost,
Really?
If it's all your fault, fixing it shouldn't make you a hero. It just makes you fixing the mess you made.
It's not all her fault, though. Ciri was going to go to Cintra anyways. I think she made that pretty clear. She really wanted to go to Cintra, and that was being led to the entire time. When Geralt went and met Istrid and to go check out the monolith, Ciri was upset she didn't go then. She was looking for any opportunity to go, and I think she would have eventually found it. The fact that it was with Yennefer...
I agree.
I would disagree a little bit in that, yes, she wanted to go, but she also knew it was a horrible idea to go because she wasn't ready yet. She wanted to do whatever she could to get ready, which is why she was even willing to become a witcher. I mean, she wanted to be capable of going back to Centra and taking her own back and setting things right. The only reason she then went now was because Geralt needed her,
Mhm.
is kind of how she pictured it. And so she was willing to go. But I think in the back of her head, she still knew this is a horrible idea.
In my brain, whether something like that was inevitable or not does not change the fact that it happened then and now was Yennefer's fault. Therefore,
Oh, yeah.
everything that happened then and there was Yennefer's fault. Could it have
But
happened
Yennefer
anyways in
was
the future?
being manipulated. You know,
Also-
Yennefer was being used. Is there anything we can say to give her a little grace on that?
Yennefer was
Yeah,
given a
it wasn't
choice. It was a
Yennefer
very
that
hard
caused
choice.
the release.
She did make a choice.
I'm sorry. I'm speaking over Zach. But
No, you're good.
Yennefer,
Go for it.
you didn't cause Yennefer didn't cause the release, right? It was the death of the baby, that despair from the elven baby dying, that released the
Mhm.
deathless mother.
That's true.
So it's not Yennefer doing that. Yennefer had a change of heart before she was ever released.
Side
And-
tangent here. Not really, but kind of. Moving over to the Deathless Mother. So, like, as far as I understand, not a thing from the books, not a thing from the games. The Deathless Mother is original to the show to tie these things together here now. Major Baba Yaga vibes, right?
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Yeah, I can see it.
I mean, the cottage got up and walked, okay?
Yeah, but
No,
I
I'm
mean,
with you.
Cottage getting them. You could say that's Monster House vibes too, the Pixar movie or
That's because
whatever.
Monster House is
I was a little bit
actually
seeing
a
Cabin in the
modern
Woods
take
when
on
the house
Baba
got
Yaga.
up. So.
No, I actually really did enjoy this season. There are a couple things here and there, and I finally just realized something. We've gone on so many weird loops, and I love it. Back to Triss for a moment because I need confirmation on something. Brendan,
Yo,
you've read Blood of Elves, right?
yeah, I believe so.
Is
It's
Triss alive?
to my understanding, yes.
Okay, because last I remember, that monolith plinth placard remembrance thing, the monument that
Mhm.
Tevessa was inscribing
Tisaya.
Tisea. Thank you. Tevessa is a very different person who doesn't exist in The Witcher.
Does she
But
know
Brendan knows
Geralt?
exactly where they're from.
Brief out of that's a stylist for one of my D&D characters.
Oh,
Tevessa.
jeez, that's really out there.
Hey, I have a lot going on in my brain being a DM for you, okay? No, that placard we see at the end of Sword of Destiny in the books. And Geralt is
You
walking
talk about
up
the one
to it.
floating in the air that
Yeah,
she's
it's
inscribing
on like a Washington monument kind of thing, an obelisk. That was
Okay.
the word I was looking for.
So
And
did she create like a little air bubble to that, and that's what she was
I
causing
think she was like creating
writing
the
to happen?
placard that's going to go on that, and it's not going to be it
Because it wasn't
together, I
clear.
think.
It was like there's a floating letter in the air that's she's magically inscribing on.
It
and I
was
didn't know what I
very
was
unclear.
seeing.
But in the books, Geralt reads through the names and he knows the last name is going to be Yennefer, and it's not. It's Triss. That's where I stopped reading because I haven't read the next one yet. So as far as I know, Triss is dead.
I wonder. Yeah, because here's this issue where we haven't gone into Blood of Elves or past Blood of Elves. She's certainly in the game, right? Like they had Triss
Mhm.
alive in the game. So my hunch, not having gotten past that, is that they probably like she must still be
She
alive
must be.
for him because she hasn't done enough in the first 3 books for her to be a relevant enough character to compete for Geralt's attention.
Unless it was a character that was liked enough from the books, but not important enough that they could put a storyline that wasn't pivotal to the story into the games.
I think she needs to be alive, though. Not that I'd ever condone this, but just to keep the hope of that three-way alive, she's got to be alive.
Anyone who's actually read all of these books is looking at us and laughing, knowing one way or the other.
Probably.
And give it a few months, we all might know all of the answers to this. But here and now today, we just haven't gotten there.
And Jim, frankly, I don't think you're being ambitious enough. The game did a three-way. That's been done. There's a lot of attractive sorceresses in the Witcher TV show. So, I mean, let's throw Tisea in there. Throw Sheila in there too.
I mean, the show's already done an orgy.
Correct.
Was that in season 1?
Yep,
it was. Yennefer got
See,
herself out.
another reason I need to do a rewatch, I guess.
Geralt.
I don't remember that.
Yennefer.
I was so confused on season 1 at times. So confused.
Okay, I think season 1 does a horrible job explaining the longevity of peoples. And I think that would make a lot of sense if, like, you got an idea that, hey, sorceresses and witchers live for an incredibly long time compared to humans.
I think everything is, like, implied and talked around, and I think that's done well. It's very subtle, but it can make that first season very confusing.
I think it appealed more towards the book reader in the sense that the stories start out a little confusing, the books, so they kind of touched on that in the way they did season 1 of the show. But for someone who just likes fantasy and is coming in blind, I was lost. And I've heard other people say, oh, it was obvious. You should have figured it out. I don't care. I didn't until the show was practically over. And then I'm like, oh, and that's not good writing for me. There were some flaws there.
To my memory, like, one of the biggest reveals that the show did was when Geralt was. This was the episode that actually introduced Triss. So to go back to that, they were showing young King Foltest at the ball where Yennefer was stealing her position, or taking her position. I suppose stealing's not fair to my darling love Yennefer. But where Foltest was 50 years younger, and so comparatively, I think that helped. But you had to really catch it because it was very quick where he got snapped at by his mother.
Subtle, and I think there were clever things, but for someone who didn't know to look for them, you'd never see it.
Right. That's why I think it'll be a lot better and very enjoyable on the rewatch. Because now I'll understand what I'm looking at, and it'll all tie together in wonderful ways. And I'll be like, this is a great show. And yeah, it didn't feel that way the first time, but enough to look forward to season 2. And I'm so glad season 2 made so much more sense.
Now, book to show, there's one episode that I've talked to Brendan about briefly over text. But I need us to talk about here and now, because I think it shows how good of a job the show is doing at adapting things, making it its own thing. But I honestly think the show did a better job here than the book. And that's crazy. Season 2, episode 1, I believe. The one with the Beastman, the house, and the Bruxa. I'm trying to help my dad understand what we're talking about.
Like I said to you, I think they did Tormund Giantsbane so dirty. They made him shave his beard and everything. But no, you're right. The fact, because in the books, Ciri was never involved in the Beastman story, a werewolf guy. And I think
he's got big boar tusks, Dad.
Gotcha now. I'm there. Beauty and the Beast episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I texted Zach, or I said it to Zach, better Ogierd from the Wheel of Time show. Because that was actually closer to my headcanon what an Ogierd looked like. I'm sorry. Off the track, not trying to shit on your guys' topic for your entire podcast. That would not be something I did, despite the fact that this show is superior in every way. But I got booted. My camera got
just showing you the power. Watch your tongue.
If I didn't have tech in front of me, you were getting a spit take right there.
I've had connectivity issues in the past. Where's my camera?
For those who are listening and not watching, that makes no sense, but it is hilarious.
Yeah, for those of you
Anyways.
watching audio later, Brendan was just removed from the stream for a moment. He was put in the timeout box, and then we let him back in.
So, anyways, we were talking about Novellin of Witcher ilk,
Yes.
the superior fantasy media. Sorry.
Can't help himself.
Don't put me in timeout again. You're right, though, because I think, like, playing up the difference between, like, what is truly a monster and what is someone who's cursed, and, like, how can we help these different people? And, like, I think in general, like, Novellin himself, like, it wasn't the curse that made him monstrous, right? Like, he raped people. Like, I think they specifically said that.
Yeah.
And so I think it was really interesting to watch that development, like, see how, and this was the first time Ciri saw what Geralt does. And so, like, I think it was a really good decision to have her there, specifically.
And I just want to highlight so that you understand how different this was from the books. This is my favorite story within the books, actually, that I've read so far.
Okay.
And differences they changed just off my brain. First one being Ciri was there. Was not there in the books. It was pre Geralt and Ciri together kind of thing.
Okay.
One of the other bigger changes, they knew each other. Novellin and Geralt knew each other and had that history together, had a relationship. In the books, Geralt comes across basically that first scene that we saw with the cart that got destroyed, and Bruxa had done that. Geralt comes across that and tracks it back to the house and spends some time with this guy. And is like, oh, you didn't do that. I'll leave you alone. And then later
so there was no history.
Wait, Roach was scared. I'll go back. And he realizes and finds the creature that isn't Novellin. It's really interesting and cool. Totally different. The last of the big things that I think makes a big difference is where in Geralt's career this is. If I remember correctly, in the books, it's pretty early on. It might even be pre-Butcher of Blaviken.
It's right in there. It's in that same time frame.
I know it's written in the book after.
Well, in the show, they're clearly done with everything early. They're now just moving forward. And I think they will continue to tie in some of the old plot lines and put them in here now, work them into the story, because they're still cool stories, cool elements to add.
Yeah. Now we have this older, wiser, but also kind of just fed up with the world Geralt.
Gruntier.
Sure. He gained more power by more grunts. Thank you, Brendan. And all those different pieces going on made it a lot more engaging and interesting, so that you were invested in the outcome in a different way. I'll say it right now, I loved a number of the episodes here and there, but because that had been my favorite story and it was even better, that's my favorite episode, period.
Okay. Now, we are getting close, pushing an hour here. So I have a question I do want to ask the group, but kind of a last question. So before we do that, is there anything else that you have planned, Zach, that really you do want to make sure we talk about?
I just had one more person that I had to throw out there.
Yeah.
Highlight some of the differences between game, show, books. And that's Jaskier. / Dandelion. Which way is it in the games?
As far as
in the games?
He does,
right?
As Dandelion.
Okay.
Coincidentally, the most banger song from the games is not anything he does, though. It's actually from the chick he's like madly in love with, Priscilla.
The one that we saw in the book, like mermaid story.
Maybe. I can't remember. That's escaping me a little bit, but
possibly.
her name's Priscilla, and her song is kind of the banger of the game, which is coincident weird, right? Because Dandelion has put out some fantastic songs for all fans of Geralt, I would say.
Well, he must, otherwise he wouldn't still be alive, because there's lots of reasons to want to get rid of this doofus.
Secondarily,
But
though,
he's got
how
the
is he
bard
still
thing
alive?
going on.
We've talked about this long-livedness, and it's not really touched on all that much. And like, Yennefer's got her sorceress thing. Geralt's got his Witcher thing. Why is he still alive?
Well, in the show,
because
he's not part of the old stuff. He's only more the newer Witcher.
Some of it. He's
That's
there
why
when
he jumps
Yennefer
in
and
and
Geralt
out.
meet each other
Mhm.
for the first time. He's there when Geralt first claims the child surprise with Ciri. So he's at least been there with Geralt since before that. He's there for enough of the old enough things that he doesn't feel old enough. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah,
By the first time you're meeting 21, I'd put him probably in that Jaskier Dandelion, probably about 21, right? Like, he's going around to taverns, he's singing, dancing, doing his whole bardic shtick.
trying to make a name for himself at that point.
Mhm.
Exactly. And then Geralt is his ticket to
Totally.
fame, exactly. And so I don't see the same time jump that you do there. I think by the games, he's probably pressing that 40, 42 mark where he has a beard, so you know he's older. They've done a good job indicating
That's how it
that.
Whereas in the show, they just made him look dirty.
And ripped. Did you see that bad scene? Oh my goodness.
Dude's been working out, doing his liar bench presses.
I think he's been
so
pressing
mad
something.
that Geralt left him. That's been his go the whole time.
Just Luke curls every day.
I kind of got the impression he's been doing a lot of
extracurricular activities.
Yeah,
Calisthenics.
So horizontal tango.
There you go. Yes, that was quite clearly implied.
You're correct.
Which is part of how is he still alive, but that's
in
a different
every
kind
iteration,
of how is he still alive.
You are correct.
Well, I mean, Jaskier's whole thing is he's good at talking, so talks his way out of it. It's like,
He's great at talking out of his ass.
Yeah. Do you think I would sleep with something that looks like that? Go ahead.
All right.
Anyways, no, I think the persona that he takes on in the Witcher show is really good. I love Jaskier as a character. Having that comedic relief to serious topics, I think, is important for all characters. You know, you see it in the stories of Tom Marilyn, you see it in the stories of Wit. I know I've talked about Wade Kings already. Having that person in there to kind of set the tone aside is really nice.
Agreed. Completely agree. Is that good, Zach? Anything else you want to say?
You had one last question?
I do. I just want to boil it down then. For someone to truly, fully appreciate The Witcher and get all that they should, can they just enjoy the Netflix show? Or are they missing out on the richness? Do they need to read the books? Do they need to play the video games? What do you say? What do you think?
I think my opinion on this is actually going to be probably the most generous. Probably, maybe I'm wrong. If you're an average consumer of media in general, if the show's all you're going to ever watch, you're fine. It might actually be a better experience for you because it's very well done. It does stay true to like the core idea of any of the iterations and is very entertaining. If you are a fantasy lover, read the books. If you like games, play the games as well. Because they are some fantastic representation of all three different types of media, in my opinion, while being separately their own thing. If you try one and go, not really my kind of book, not really my kind of game, maybe not my show, that's okay. But if you really do love fantasy and you like the mediums, do it.
If you didn't like any of it, that's okay. They're not listening to this episode.
No, if you don't like any one part, there's a different
Okay.
version that will
That's
be
not
good
how it
for
came out. Yeah.
Like if you don't like the
Brendan,
games
what do
and
you
the
think
books,
about this?
you might like the show.
I really think you should expose yourself at least to everything. I mean, even if you're not playing
Please
the
don't
game.
expose yourself.
I know that I went right
Or
there too for a
do.
minute.
The show,
You
the
need
book,
to
and the game
expose
are all
yourself to
okay with it.
Oh boy.
No, seriously, look up The Witcher or the gameplay on YouTube. Like, watch how like in depth the story
I could.
goes.
Zach left his Xbox with me, the 360.
Play it.
I could.
Jim,
I
why
could
haven't
do
you
that,
played
right?
it?
Because I'm awful at
No.
these things, and they
No,
take
you would
time.
enjoy it. It
but
has a feel of
Fantastic.
like
Put it on.
you remember
baby
Fable?
mode and you'll go through.
I do remember Fable. I sucked.
it's closer
at
to
Fable.
that kind of feel of a game.
Okay. All right. So I would just start with Witcher 2, though. Forget about Witcher 1.
Yes.
Is that
I think that's a fair assessment. That 2007 marker, man, games got so much better in the 2010s. Like, so much better.
now just the game design? Zach, am I still going to have the problem where I'm looking over here, but I keep running into a door? Will that
That's
still
just
happen?
you don't know how to use a right joystick.
It's the one on this.
I
this
don't know
side,
where
he
it's
says.
coming from.
Oh man,
He's
no,
gonna
I think
die a lot.
they're a good source of medium. Like every single one, like people don't like the Witcher like games because of their gameplay. It's because they tell an interesting story that they're not familiar with.
Yeah.
Like, and I used the word labor of love before, where it's like, man, it's so crazy. Like every detail they put into this game, where it's like when you attack certain quests or when you do, there's no really fetch quest. Everything is well done. You find yourself attached to all these characters, and you're meeting characters from the books and from the show that maybe you haven't seen before. I think that like that's important. Like especially the books. One of my favorite stories is about the Doppler Beavervelt, who's he sells goods and stuff, and you meet him in the game and you know him in the game, and they haven't even touched. The only Doppler in the show has been a bit of an asshole, if we're being frank. He took on the visage of Mousak, and he tried to trick Ciri. No, like it reinforces that not all monsters are really monsters. Like they just want to live in the world like anyone else as a result of the conjunction. So no, I think all of the mediums are worth investigating at a minimum, even if you don't play the games, even if you don't read the books. Look at your summaries, look at your videos and things like that, and learn from those. Because I think, yeah, it's
very
important.
good. Thank you. I'm definitely going to read the books.
Good.
I will probably dabble into the video game, just because. Why not?
I'm going to blanketly throw this out there. If you start the second, I don't see you ever playing the third. Simply because I know you in games and how much time
I'll never
you
make
have
it
for
through
them.
the second.
No, I don't
Is
think
that
you'll
it?
ever finish the second one.
Because I can't
You'll
do the
enjoy
third
it,
if I
but I
haven't
don't think
finished
you'll
the
finish
second.
it.
That's how I work. Yeah.
Prove me wrong.
To be fair, the
a
second's
challenge.
quite a bit smaller. The third, though, it's like 2-3 times bigger than Skyrim or something is what they quoted.
So I'll play it till I die. Got it.
Pretty much.
Okay, we're good. All right, very good. All right. Well, this has been great. This has been good stuff.
Mhm.
I think we've done a nice job of covering all the different tangents of what The Witcher is about. Brendan, you were awesome. Good context you brought to this episode for sure. We appreciate it. If those of you who are watching it have appreciated it, well, this is on YouTube, so be sure to like the video and subscribe. We're going to be putting more and more content out here this way in our YouTube format. Again, it's all in our audio as well, so if you're more the audio person, be sure to subscribe to us wherever you find podcasts. But we're really liking being able to bring our smiling, shining faces to you too, and bringing guests as well. So be sure to let us know what you think of the video and interact with us, not only here on YouTube, but all the ways that we're out there. Zach, where can they find us? What are the other places?
Well, you can check out Instagram for our drink recipes. This might end up there, depending on if I make another one and get a picture.
It should. It should.
It looks cool. But also our Twitter, where we are most active, and Facebook. If you happen to use Facebook, we'll see it eventually. If you want to contact us directly, you can hit us up on fantasyfortheages@gmail.com or come join the conversation on Discord. There are links to all of these things in the notes of wherever, whether it's the description down below or the episode notes.
Absolutely. I think that's a good place to leave it then. Again, Brendan, thank you. It's been a pleasure to see you again, to have some time conversing. And for all of you, thanks for being here. We'll talk to you next time.
This is the awkward part where